Let's get ready to do some cool fragrance stuff. Let's get ready to battle the same fragrance.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to J-ROYL, everyone. My name is James. This is the Royal Rumble, where I get fragrances to fight to the death. Today is a very special Royal Rumble because I'm going to battle off the same fragrance. What do you mean, James? Today's battle is a vintage versus video. In this corner, we got Chanel Egoiste. And in this corner, we got Chanel Egoiste Vintage Edition. Current formulation versus old school vintage, man. This guy is the 75ml splash version of the fragrance. And as you can tell from the color, it is quite a bit darker. For those of you who aren't familiar with Egoiste, it is one of my favorite sandalwood-based fragrances. When it first was released, it wasn't a huge success because it was so avant-garde for its time, especially in the designer market. It has a beautiful cinnamon quality to it. The Damascus rose is there as well. With all the reformulation and vintage chatter in the fragrance community, I wanted to pair these fragrances off directly and find out if vintage is better. Off the opening, there are considerable differences. The current formulation is a bit brighter, it's a little more vibrant, while the vintage version, it's smoother, it's richer, and it goes straight into those beautiful woods. The dry downs are pretty similar, to be honest. They're nearly identical. Maybe the vintage is a little more powdery, a little bit of a dusty wood quality, but the difference is so slight that your sillage would be identical either way. Longevity is pretty similar. I get about 10 hours with these fragrances consistently. You would think that this fragrance would perform better being a darker juice. I mean, that's what they say. Versatility, pretty similar, to be honest. Although this has a fresher quality to it off the top, which would make it a bit easier to wear in the warmer weather. The vintage formulation, although richer, is still smooth. It's not abrasive, which means it won't be very offensive if you decided to wear this on a cool summer day or a bit of a summer night situation. So with all these factors, which one do I prefer? Who is the winner of this vintage versus? The reformulation. Honestly, I prefer the reformulation for a few reasons. The first being the presentation. It's not a splash bottle, so it's a lot easier to apply on yourself. I don't need to decant it out of the splash container into an atomizer. The atomizer is built right into the bottle. Secondly, availability and price obviously is going to be a lot better with the current formulation. And finally, I prefer the more vibrant opening of this guy. Now, my hypothesis is the vintage probably had a similar opening back when this was released 15 or so years ago. But with time, those top notes have faded. So now the opening is closer to the mid. And that's usually the case when it comes to splash bottles because they're constantly gonna be exposed by oxygen every time you open and close the fragrance. So naturally, those volatile top notes will fade. I will say I'm very impressed with the performance of this fragrance because even though that top is pretty much gone, the mid and the base go on forever. And I will also mention that this is not the holy grail of Chanel Egoiste. Apparently the Egoiste Cologne Concentré, that's something special. And it's a fragrance that's really, really sought after that I have yet to get my nose on. To sum it all up, everyone, you don't have to go hunting for the vintage bottle. The current formulation is just as good, if not better in some cases. But that's for your nose to decide. All of our links to the Facebook group, Snapchat, and Instagram are down below. And if you like what you see, then go ahead and subscribe and like this video. Winner! The modern formulation. Cool. Peace.